Hey everybody, off the Mike Sports Network here. Another edition of Out the Top Rope. I didn't think I'd be continually talking about R-Truth, Ron Killings, as he's now known as. A lot of stuff has come out recently in regards to what transpired and led to what happened at Money in the Bank with him returning and, ultimately attacking John Cena and costing him the match. There are so many, and I already did a video about this. There are so many people who still are convinced that this is a work. And my question to you is what I said in my previous video. Why do you want it to be a work? Because you want to dunk on the media and act like they didn't know what the fuck was going on. Guys, this is wrestling, okay? Shit happens. And I understand people want to think it's all a part of the show, but come on. You'd have to be a fucking idiot to really think that this was a work. It's an example of WWE completely fucked up. They completely miscalculated this, and it led to outrage from the locker room, which I think is a bigger piece to this than the We Want Truth movement. I think it was because the locker room was really irritated with what happened. There were several noteworthy names who were very outspoken about this happening. We saw all the reports backstage of them taking away R-Truth merch and everything. Like, this did not land very well, okay? That's what happened. Because if you honestly think in your right mind that WWE's plan was to directly upset their locker room and you think that they were in on this bit too, come on. Come on. But I will say this, because just that piece of it, but also just the tribalistic mindset in this community has really ruined what was a really cool moment in wrestling. Because for once in this business, the people in charge listened to the audience. And it hasn't happened really, I would say, probably since Daniel Bryan. Like, at least in this type of release role. Like, they obviously listened to us with the Cody Rhodes thing, but that was a main event storyline where Cody was not one of these underappreciated guys who was saddled off and let go. This was part of a story, and The Rock just came in there and tried to screw everything up. This is really the first time since I'd say Daniel Bryan, when he was let go, and then was brought back. I think this was about 15 years ago in 2010. And it's just like, why do we have to make this about, okay, because I've seen so many people just basically say, TKO caved, whatever. We've had all these audience members, and I saw something from Ricochet that I do need to address at some point, where Ricochet was basically saying, hey, Tony Khan listened to his fans, but hey, he didn't get the same respect that Triple H and TKO did. Guys, why does this have to be which company did better than the other? Okay. Like, I could and people would get mad at me if I very easily came on here, and I might actually, frame this in a different way at some point in terms of, what may or may not have been done. But in terms of this conversation, in terms of R-Truth and listening to the audience, this is not a tribalistic thing. This is actually a really cool moment to see an underappreciated guy who's really been saddled in a mid-card gimmick. A guy, and I'll be honest, I'll take this on the chin. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It clearly was that big of a deal. And, WWE responded appropriately and, brought this guy back. And who's to say what's going to happen? But first and foremost, if you still think that this is a work, the narratives being spun out of this is what's driving me fucking crazy right now. Because there are so many people who are still trying to act like they're smarter than everybody else and try to dunk on the media and basically saying, y'all got freaking punked and you got worked out by everyone else. And listen, some of the people in the wrestling media drive me a little bit crazy with the way that they are slanted towards one media outlet or towards one company or the other. Nobody got this wrong. He was released. Or, he wasn't released, actually. I take that back. I'm speaking the way that people are still talking about it. He was not released. He was not re-signed. His contract expired. That's what happened. And then, because let me ask you guys this. Do you guys really think that over 6 days they would want a storyline to play out like this? Because there's so many holes in the logic of that element of this R Truth thing is that okay, well, okay, he was let go 6 days ago, was not re-signed. He then is gone for 6 days. Nobody really mentions him or even talks about him. There's all this reporting out there. And then all of a sudden, less than a week later, they change their mind. To me, like, how is that a work? He worked against JC Mateo and got killed in 2 minutes in his last match 2 days before his contract expired. This wasn't a John Cena thing. This wasn't a John Cena thing. 2 weeks ago, he got his ass kicked by John Cena. Okay. And then he's attacking him and being all serious now? That's a storyline to you guys? Why would you want that to be that way? So you want to work your locker room, upset them to the point that, hey, and some people are saying, hey, because then extending that to the locker room, then if you're saying this is a work, that means the locker room was in on this. So either you're working your locker room or they're in on this bit. To me, why do you even resort to going that far? For all due respect to R Truth, he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer at some point, and he's well respected. Why would you go to this length to just, do that bit and then 6 days later change your mind? It doesn't make any sense. So all you people who are just trying to frame this narrative in your mind to make yourself feel better about yourself because you hate the fucking media, and trust me, as a guy in the media, there are pieces of the wrestling media that drive me crazy. This is not one of them. Every single media source in the industry got this correct. R Truth was let go. He was not re-signed. That was true. What happened beyond that is anybody's guess. But this is not an elaborate storyline. They pivoted, they changed course, and they did the right thing. And then in regards to the tribalistic side of this thing, if you're an AEW fan and now trying to act like you didn't want R Truth, or you're like Ricochet being a fucking idiot and trying to frame this as, yeah, my boss listens to you, but you guys didn't give him the respect. Now TKO does something good, or Triple H does something good. And then, people getting mad at Triple H for what he said in the press conference, which, hey, I get it. Some people want him to own up to it, but guys, this is entertainment. They're not going to admit it. And who cares? You got a moment that you really wanted to see. Everybody went crazy. It's going to be remembered for a long time. It's genuinely one of the more shocking moments. You don't know what to expect. But to act like this is some sort of freaking notch on the belt in terms of the war between fans and the media, or the AEW, WWE things, the narratives that are being spun out of this whole thing have been ridiculous. And you guys need to be better. You guys need to be better. Like, I understand that some people think that I'm just some sort of WWE shill, but listen, I didn't like the way that this whole thing played out, but like I said, I wasn't losing sleep over it. It wasn't like a big deal. But then over here, now thinking back on it and hearing the audience and looking back to some of the quotes from some of the talent in the locker room and what R Truth meant and what Ron Killings as a man meant to these people, it's easy to see why they shifted course. It's just, it was a complete miscalculation by WWE management and TKO management, because they were like, oh, they looked at his number on a spreadsheet and they basically said, R Truth's in his 50s. He's been a mid-card guy. He really hasn't done anything. Why do we need to bring him back? And then it just turned into this whole thing, this whole saga for an entire week that they bring him back in a big-time spot. Can we just be happy about that? And just, understand that you don't see stuff like this very often in wrestling, rather than, just trying to figure out if it's a work or if it's not a work, or if, one company is better than the other because they listen to their fans. Like, what are we doing? Come on. You guys got to be better. Seriously. It's getting nauseating really to, do this type of thing. But you guys clearly have an interest in what I'm saying, whether you love me or you hate me. But it's hard to really fathom so many people in this community just really are trying to concoct this idea in their heads that, hey, we got worked. Yeah. You wanted to get screwed over and messed with? Guys, that's the old era. Vince McMahon fucked with us all the time. And separate from that, Vince McMahon would have never done something like this. I know he did it with Daniel Bryan, but that was a very different situation than this. Daniel Bryan was younger and, was kind of being pushed, and everybody universally knew of him on the independent scene as, like, a wrestler. And I'm not trying to disrespect our truth. Our truth had been around for 17 years. He had a great run, even if he was a mid Carter. This was a completely different situation. So just media and, the tribalism and, all this crazy shit that goes on in wrestling in 2025. Guys, this is everything encapsulated in just one situation. And it's just like all you guys need to do is fucking grow up. Seriously. It's getting exhausting. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.